Hello everyone, welcome back to Marianne's World. I'm Marianne and at the moment I'm doing a series of videos about embroidering on my hand stitched linen coat, and today I'm taking that another stage further and I'm embroidering violets and bluebells and maybe some celandines, but I'm not sure. And so this is as far as I've got this morning. I have started to flesh that whole little area out, and I decided I'd use silk ribbon embroidery this week, and I've got all my supplies here beside me and I'm looking forward to getting on. Instead of showing you from the beginning and then I do a little bit and then I finish it off camera, I've sort of started it off camera and I'm finishing it off in this tutorial. So I'll turn you around so you can see my supplies and then I'll just get on and start it. So as well as the normal things like my scissors and my needle book in case I need some different needles, I've got an array of ribbons. I've got a pile of silk ribbon here, which usually stays in this little rice bag thing. And as well as that, I've got out my polyester ribbons because I have tons of it. And if you can't afford silk ribbon, get the polyester. It will embroider up just as well, dependent on what you're using it for. The only other thread I'm using is this vintage cotton, and it is cotton thread, so a vintage silk or cotton, and I'm using that for wherever I need thread in my needle. I've got a brush with a good point because I'm going to be painting up when things are embroidered on my coat. So I've got that, my jar of water, my thread jar, and of course, last but not least, my coat and my Inktense paints. So I'll clear the decks and get right on with it because I think this is going to be a beautiful spring corner for my coat. So here's what I've done so far. I've been laying in background leaves and I've done the first couple of bluebells because I wanted to flesh out these violets. I hadn't actually done that many. And when I came to do it the other day, it was, why did it even do it like that? Because there's no background in. But I think because I've been working on it so much, my ideas have just changed about what I wanted it to look like. So I am putting in some big leaves, bluebells, some more violet leaves, violets, and possibly some celandines. But I'm going to start this morning with laying in some new leaves here. Going to put the polyester ribbon in because I've only got a certain amount of silk left, and I think in fact that's it, that's all the wide silk I've got left, and I want to keep that for the bluebells themselves. So I'm going to start off with this creamish polyester ribbon and I'm going to put it in a needle with a sharp point but quite a large eye so I can get the ribbon through. I'm not going to bother ironing it because I'm going to be painting it and it will all just flatten out afterwards. So I've just put the white ribbon in my needle and I've just made an overhand knot at the end as I'll pull it through from the back. And I feel as if I just want to be able to integrate this in. I don't want them just to be separate little pieces, which is why the primroses go through and behind the ferns. I want to lay in a leaf going up here, and so I will come up from the bottom. It doesn't really matter where I come up because I'll be covering it up with violet leaves. And I'm just going to take my leaf up. Maybe I'll want it to go across there a bit. I think I'll go down there. I think that'll be good enough. I'll leave a bit of slack so I can manipulate it a little bit, and I'll just take it down through the ribbon, which is actually called ribbon stitch. So I'll just hold it in, take it through, let it roll over a bit, and then try and get a nice point there. That's it. So I've got a lovely point at the top, and I'm just going to pull up with my needle somewhere else. Here I think, and I'll get ready to start another leaf. So before I start that leaf in, I'm going to sew this one down, and I'm going to use my vintage cotton, which is just a mid-green, and I'm going to put a central stem right the way down, and I will start at the bottom, and I'm just going to running stitch it in and then whip it back to make a nice central line. And so I just need to hold it where I think I want it to be, and I don't want to finish anything off here in case I've got excess ribbon or not enough ribbon and I'm pulling it tight. So I'm going to do each leaf individually. So I'll just start and make about a 1/4 inch running stitch, coming up right up the middle. And I don't know why I particularly chose the sewing cotton as opposed to embroidery floss, but it's working really well. I think I just wanted a fine line really. So I'll just keep putting it down and making sure I'm heading in the direction I want to head in. I think I'll do that and have a bit of a curve at the top. And I'll just curve it. I'll just have enough slack to curve it round. And I'm going to whip this down just with the heel of my needle back through the running stitch. And it's going to make a lovely mid-rib. Because it's the sewing cotton, it easily just pulls through. That means my ribbon's sewn down, and actually I'll just take my cotton through to the back and I will put a few stitches in the end of the silk at the same time, which will just mean that that is nicely secured. So I'll just put it up onto the back of the leaf, and then I can just use the end of my cotton to just put a few overcast stitches in. And so there's my first leaf gone on, and so now, because I know that I have plenty ribbon there, I haven't tightened it, I just flatten everything out and pull my next leaf down to see where it's going to come to. I can put a twist on here like I've done on there and there. And I think I maybe want another one in there. I want the leaves to look a bit more dense. I think I am going to just put it there. Again, I'll ribbon stitch it through. It means I'm not wasting my ribbon by tying off all the time. And again, before I put the next leaf in, I will stitch right the way down. So I'm going to go on and put a couple of... See, I think actually if I put the leaf over the top of the violet, that's perfectly okay because they're in among each other. Now I've put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 leaves in. I've actually run out of this polyester 7mm now, so if I want to put more leaves in, I'll have to use a different colour and paint it down. They're going over the top of the stems of the bluebells I've already done. They're going over the top of some of the violets, but that's fine, that's what's going to give me depth. But before I put any more bluebell stems in, I'm going to paint up what I've got. So I've got my Inktense here. I'm just going to lay it there. I know it's on top of my coat, but I'm careful, I'll be no problem. And I've got a brush, and it's quite a big brush, but it's got a really good point on it, and so it's really easy to put the paint onto what I want it to be without it affecting my actual coat. And I do get comments about people saying, oh, you're brave painting straight onto your coat. But as long as you're not just ladling the water on and soaking it, the paint will just go onto the piece you're putting it on. It won't soak through into the background at all. None of this colour here has gone through onto the coat underneath. It's only painted the bit I'm touching. You just need a decent brush that you can put things on, and then just be careful, but it's easier than you think. And I'd like to paint them up before I put any more stems in, because the next flower stems are going to go on top of these leaves and therefore give me more depth. So I'm just going to make sure my brush has got plenty of water. I'm going to pick up, I'll turn the colours around so you can see the colours I'm using. I just use my Inktense like a paint palette, and before I had these I used to use acrylic paint watered down. And so if you're worried about having Inktense or you don't have them, just use acrylic paints, but you just need to water them down enough and not put them on thick, and they will soak into the fabric and they will paint up just as lovely. They really will. But since I got these, I do love using them, and they are colour fast once dry. I have no problem in them putting them on a coat that's going to be washed. And I'm using a few colours, and I'm going to start at the bottom where I know it's going to be covered up with another leaf and just practice my colour. And yep, I'm happy with that, and I'm just going to let the colour flow off the brush onto the ribbon. And you'll see that the cotton in the middle is going to go a little bit darker as well. That's going to give me a lovely midrib. And it is as simple as that, and it'll dry so quickly. So every time you go to pick up colour, it's going to be slightly different. And that'll give you good variation. And just look at a photograph, look online, you can see the colours you need to use. The fact that some of these are really light doesn't really make a bother to me, because I can always overpaint them again if I feel that they're not quite right. You know, that one's quite a bit yellowy. I can just take a bit and I can darken it down. It doesn't really matter how often you go over. Once you're happy, you just stop. I don't mind all the variation. In fact, that's what makes it look so pretty in my eyes. But if you'd rather do your silk embroidery with pre-done colours, then it's still going to look pretty. Just for me, this is the way I prefer to do it. The bluebells come out so pretty. I've done them before. I did them in the fabric flower book, and they came out lovely, and I've sort of done them in the same way, just bigger, that's all. Now I'm going to couch a stem. These are all, well, they're not quite dry, but they're nearly dry. So I've got both needles. I've got 4mm silk ribbon in one needle with a knot on the end, and I've got my sewing needle with the vintage cotton in another needle, because I'm going to couch the stems down. And so the first one, I want to sort of come into here. So I'm going to start it just right over the fern, I think. I sort of just practice it in my head, how I think it's going to be. I think I do want it to be there. I can droop over towards the... So I think I'll come up here. No, I'm going to come up at the bottom. I changed my mind. I'm going to come up in here. And then I'm going to twist this needle until my ribbon twists up into a spiral. And it'll make a beautiful stem. So I'm just twisting the needle in my hand like that. So I'll keep twisting and twisting and twisting until it's a nice tight spiral. And I just need to head this stem in the direction I want it to be in. Across all my leaves, and then lay it down. Sort of could be like that. Let me have a look at it. I think that's a good place for another stem to be. And so what I'm going to do is take my needle through there, but not fast enough or anything. So I'll hold the twist in and take my needle through to the back. And just leave that needle under there. Now the twist's going to stay in now because the needle's gone through to the back. And so now I'm going to get my needle with the thread in. Just move my pin cushion out the way. I'm going to come up beside it with my thread. And I'm just going to keep lying my twist in, taking a couching stitch across, straight across, and up about a half an inch away, or less than half an inch. Hold it straight across and a little half an inch. Actually it's not, it's more like a centimetre. I know I swap from metric to imperial all the time. It's because I was sort of 11 going on 12 when metric came in, I was already set in my ways. So I still sometimes convert back to imperial. I'll say, no, we're not paying so many guineas for an ice cream. That's what it's like. Or is it just me that does that? Maybe it's just me. Okay, I don't want any kinks. I'll just lie in, a little stitch across, hop up. Ignoring everything that's behind, because the flowers don't mind, they just grow where they grow. But that's why I should have put a background in before I actually went ahead putting those violets on the beginning of the year. Just pull it onto whatever line is in your mind's eye. If you need to put a line on, there's nothing wrong with that at all. It's just I quite often change my mind halfway through, and if I had a drawn line on, then I wouldn't be able to change my mind and I'd be stuck with it. So I'd sort of like to be a bit more free about it. But if you feel that you need to have a drawing, just have a pattern, draw it beside you, and then try and just keep looking at it, and then doing what you need to do to get that pattern onto your piece of work. And there I am right to the end. Now before I finish anything off, I'm just going to tug underneath and make sure I've got the smoothest line that I can get. I think I'm happy with that. I'll do one last stitch over the top, and then I'll finish both of those off underneath. And then next, beautiful flowers. And so I've got my 7mm silk ribbon in my needle, and I've threaded through. I'm just going to pierce the end because I want as much ribbon usable as I can get. So if I pierce the end like that, it means I don't have to have a tail. And so I can work right up as short as I can. And I am just going to put a knot on the end. And so I'm ready to start. So to do the bluebells, I'm actually going to use this, and I'm actually going to use 4mm ribbon as well to do the little recurved bits of petal. So I'm going to start at the bottom. I'll just do lie it in, take my needle through and attach it to the end of the stalk. And I'll pull through until I get a bit of a point. That can be a bud at the end, and so I'm just going to come up and do a few of them and just make sure I'm helping the ribbon go exactly where I want it to go. You need 3 hands on these types of things. There. Okay, I'm happy with that. And so now I'm going to be on to actual flowers. So I'm going to start it a little way away from the stem, because they hang on little thready stems of their own. And I shall just get my ribbon how I want it to be. This would be so much easier in a hoop really, because I could use both hands on top instead of holding my coat. But I'm not going to put my coat in a hoop. And so I want my flower to be about that long, which is about a ½ inch. And I want the curl to be part of the shape of the flower. So I'm holding everything in. I'm going to make sure my ribbon's curling the way I want it to curl, which is upwards, and I don't want a point here. I'm just going to hold it in. Just keep pulling my ribbon, and then as it gets to the end, I'm just going to let it have the roll. Just put my needle in there. And then as I pull it back, I'm going to leave that roll of ribbon. Can you see that? And that's going to make the end of my bluebell as the petals roll back. And so I'm not going to pull that down to a point. So I need to put all of my bluebells, they need to start at the top and they need to end at the bottom so that I've got that roll. So I'll just move along, and it's going over the top of the leaves. That's fine, that's exactly what they want to do. I'll put my needle through, make sure that's just hanging nicely where I want it to be, and as I get to the roll coming up, I'll make sure that I've got the rolled petal. So here it goes. The beauty of English bluebells is that they do all hang on the same side of the stem. You get the Spanish ones, which are more the cultivated, and they have the flowers all the way round, and they're a bit more stiff. They don't nod in quite the same way as the English bluebells, and I just think these ones are so beautiful. To see a bluebell would in the spring takes your breath away. It's so gorgeous. Rolling up that little reflex there. So as I come down to get a bigger flower, I'm actually going to use 2 layers because that's sort of not quite big enough. So I'm going to do 2 petals for these very last bluebells. Pull through until I get the roll, and then this time I'm going back up to the exact same space. I'm going to make a second petal coming down, which is just going to widen that flower out and make it look more open. Like that. So I've got a bigger flower. I think that's maybe all I need on that one. I've changed to the 4mm silk ribbon in my needle, and I'm just going to finish off these bluebells because I want them totally embroidered before I start to paint them in with my Inktense. And so I'm going to just start a little way away from the actual flower, and I'm just going to take my 4mm into the base of that flower underneath and let it twist as it may, because that'll be what makes it look nice. So there we go. I haven't pulled that down. If you can see, it's sticking up there, but I like the shape of it as it is, so I'm going to leave it there, and I'll hop along to the other side of the flower. I'm not coming up through the other ribbon, I'm just coming up through my coat, and I'll do the same, and just it'll make it look like the reflexed petals. And I'm not going to do anything other than let it do its own thing. There we go. And I'll do the same on these 2 as well. I think the UK has about 50% of the world's population of bluebells, so they're quite an important wildflower here. Part of the lily family, trying to dredge up what knowledge I've got. Part of the lily family, and the Victorian times, they were a symbol of everlasting love, which is very nice. Don't think I did a very good reflex petal there, but it'll manage. In fact, I'll finish this whole one off first. I'll put some 2mm in my needle. And so now I need to attach the actual flowers to the stalk. And so I can do that by just coming up at the base of the flower. I'm going to twist my ribbon just like I did before with the stem, and now I can just attach that to the stem. Put it where you want it. It's quite nice to have the little, be able to see that there's little curvy stems there, and put it down. And you can see those nice curves there. And again, on the stem there are going to be these little, I don't know whether they are sepals or not, but they stick up, and there's 2 per flower, and it's all going to make it look beautiful. So I'm going to put them in with this 2mm ribbon. Twist it light where you want, down it goes, and I'll do 2 of them per flower and work my way back up to the end. There. I'll work back up and do them on every single stalk. So now I've got bluebells ready for painting. So I think what I'll do is I'll go and put some more flowers on so that I can bring all the painting together at the same time. I'm back to do the painting. As you can see, I've actually got 6. I need another flower stem on, but I maybe want to put a couple of leaves more on yet. But I'm going to paint these ones in. And as you can probably tell, I've run out of the white 7mm silk ribbon. And I changed to my polyester, and I've used a bit of the blue and a bit of the pink, and I've got every confidence they're going to paint up nicely. It's funny as well because I went back to look at my ribbon embroidery that I did, the ribbon bluebells that I did not long after I started my channel. I thought it was last year, but it was actually latish on in 2023. And I'm doing the same thing. I'm using the pink or the blue to embroider them because I don't have the right colour, and then I was painting them in, but they were just tiny, so I wasn't using this big 7mm ribbon. I think I was using the 4. Anyway, I'm ready. And this purple here isn't a bit too purple. That's too blue. This one is almost perfect. And so I sort of use a combination of the 3 of them and sometimes this one. So I'm just going to pick it up straight from the block with some water. I could put it into there and make a little puddle. I just sort of pick it up as I go. And I don't want it to be too dark, so I'm going to start putting it on and then use water. I think what I'll do is I'll hold it up to the camera so you can see what's happening. Okay, so I don't want to put loads of water on, but I do need it to run into the fabric of the ribbon. So here we go. So this is it going down onto the white. A little bit dark, but it'll be fine because it always dries lighter. I'm just going to leave that there, put it on the next one along. I'm definitely being careful not to touch the background at all, because this would make a mark if it did. I'm just going to put water on there to fade the colour out. And they can go, they can be overpainted to get the perfect colour in the end. I think I painted those ones twice. So I just sort of go what I think, and then if it needs amending, it needs amending. I paint these little pieces really dark and the stalk, just letting the paint flow off the needle onto the silk. You don't really have to try very hard. You just sort of, as long as you've got water on your brush, it will just flow into the silk ribbon. Put some water on the bottom to help the colour flow down. Slightly more purpley to do the reflex bit back. This inky blue is just the perfect colour, I think. Just going to put a bit of that other blue on it. And I'm just going to keep going back and forth. Also helps that the ribbon isn't tight to the fabric either, the fabric of my coat. I'm transforming these bits of white ribbon into looking like bluebells. Little details like these little sepally bits, they really transform something into looking realistic. Well, I was just about to say I'd better check how much footage I've got, because I've been embroidering quite a long time and my battery went. So when I've finished these pieces of painting, I'm going to check how much, because I've got a feeling I haven't actually got time to be doing the violets on camera, because I think my video is going to be too long otherwise. So if I do them, I do, and if not, I'll have to put them on camera for next week, because it'll just make the video too long. I'm going to finish off, so I'm just going to pull back in to do these and do a bit on the pink and the blue, just to show that it is going to work, even though I have used a different colour ribbon. So I'm still picking up the same colour on my brush, and I'll just touch the tops of these, and it should work just the same, as long as I'm going darker. So I will just put a bit of them in. I'll go down and do the pink and show you how that turns out, and then I'll just finish it off camera. These are drying already. Right, so I'll just do these pinky ones. You can see I practiced it a bit when it was still on the little card. But actually, bluebells, sometimes you do see pink variations, so a little bit of pink would actually look really authentic. And that's just going to absolutely look perfect. Well, I hope you can see that that's going to work perfectly. So I'm just going to get all of this painted in. And either I'll be coming back to show you at the end of the video, or if I've still got chance to do any more, I'll come back and do violets. But so far so good. Get this painted up. Well, after 2 days worth of stitching, I ended up with nearly 4 hours of video. I just hadn't realised how much all those bits that I'd been turning the camera on, turning the camera off, had made up. So there was a lot of editing to do to get it down to just this level. So I'm here just with the finish of the bluebells, and it'll have to be violets next week. So here we are. I'm so happy with the way these have turned out. I really am. They just look beautiful. I've got some bluebell leaves coming through the end of the fern there. I may add some bluebell flowers and primrose flowers in as extras, but actually those bluebells just look beautiful to me, and I'm so happy with them. So I hope you really enjoyed seeing those be stitched. And another thing to say is, I would defy anybody to tell which was silk, which I had to sub in the polyester, and which one started off pink or blue instead of creamy white, because you actually cannot tell. And so if nothing else, I hope that just encourages you to use what you've got. You don't necessarily need to be rushing out buying things. It's lovely when you can, I totally admit that, and I'll be actually getting myself a bit more of that wide silk ribbon, because I really enjoy using it. But in the end, I do have all that polyester to use up, and if I can use it up by putting it the way that I want it in here along with the silk, then I'm going to do that, because it's there, it needs using, and I'm not just going to, forget about it because it isn't 100% silk, which is lovely though. Oh, and I've got a little bit of news about the lining. I'll just go and get the stuff. So you'll know that I've been looking for lining. Well, I haven't been able to find any silk in the colour that I liked that I could actually afford. It is so expensive. So I thought, well, I'll just find myself some plain and then I'll dye it. And I did find this from, I think it was a person on eBay. And it's Habitai silk, and it is beautiful, and it's still pricey, but not as pricey as the real dyed stuff. So I'm going to practice dyeing this myself to see if I can get a nice even coverage. I've never used a dye in the washing machine before, but to dye 5 yards or so, I'm going to have to do it in the washing machine, I think. However, when I got that, it just sort of felt maybe I'd be happier with a non-silk silk, if you know what I mean. And so I've now got these 2 samples from Etsy, from a shop on Etsy, and this one is citrus silk, and so that's made from a byproduct of the oranges industry in Spain, and I have to say it's lovely. It's a bit more heavyweight, but it's very silky and it's very soft. It's got a good drape. And this one is rose petal silk, or rose silk. It's been made from the byproduct of the rose industry, and so in a similar way to the citrus silk, I think. Again, it's a heavier weight than the habitai silk, but it feels gorgeous. And in the meantime, there may be another option too, so I'll keep you posted on either the dye experiments on these 3 fabrics, and yeah, and whatever else might be coming up. But I feel I'm at that stage because the coat's coming on so well. I can see the end in sight almost. So it'll definitely be violets next week, because I just couldn't get them into this video. I was all set to be filming them, and just, it would have made the film like, you would have been watching for 2 hours, I think. So I'll just leave it there, and say thank you for watching and all your support, and just press me the like button and subscribe if you haven't. I don't normally say all that at the end of the videos, because I think everybody knows that sort of stuff now, but anyway, I'll just say thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Come and visit me next week when you'll see how I put silk ribbon violets together. Bye everyone, thanks a lot.